So today we're going to work on expanding brackets and factorizing expressions. We're going to cover learning objective 1 when we expand a single bracket with a term on the outside. So first off, we're going to deal with, I should say, part A of this video, which is going to be expanding single brackets with a number on the outside. The second part, or the next video I should say, is going to deal with when we have just what happens when we have not a number on the outside. So let's get right into it. So here we have the number 3 on the outside, and we have x plus 1 on the inside of our bracket. But what does this actually mean? Well, it's saying that we have 3 x plus 1s. So if we are able to write that out, it means that we have x plus 1, and x plus 1, right? So if we have 3 of them, though, and we group them together, we just add them together. So this means in the end, if you're simplifying it, we have 1x, 2x, and 3x. So we're going to get 3x in our solution. And we have plus 1, plus 1, plus 1. Well, 1 plus 1 plus 1 is plus 3. Well, that's fine and dandy for, this situation where it's just 3 of it, right? And it's something simple. But what happens when it becomes more complex? Well, we want some way to kind of go through this, and well, we do multiplication. So we're going to take that 3 and we're just going to multiply by each term separately. So I've broken it up into multiple steps, but we're going to start going through it faster and faster. So this first one will take some time and break it up though. So let's do that now. So let's look at this. Step 1, multiply the term outside the bracket by the first term inside the bracket. So we're going to take 3 and we're going to multiply it by x. Okay, so 3 times by x. Then do this in green. That is our step 1. I'm going to do step 2 over here and just read it from below. Multiply the term outside the bracket by the second term inside the bracket. So the second one, we're going to do that multiplication. So 3 times 1. So here, 3 times by 1. Now, every single time I do these, I'm just going to put a plus sign in the middle because our signs are actually going to come from doing positive 3 times positive x, positive 3 times positive 1. So if we have a minus sign, it will reflect and we can just change that positive to a negative or put a negative outside the front. But we won't deal with those for a little bit just so we can get the method down fact first. So only thing that we have to do to finish this up is what is 3 times x? How can we simplify that? Well, we know from collecting like terms that we can simplify that as just 3 x, and we know that our right side, well, 3 times 1 is simply just 3. So at the end, we have 3x plus 3 is our answer, and that matches up with what we did in red in the top right. So let's try example 2 here. So example 2, same exact thing. We're going to take that number outside, this 3, and we're going to multiply it out first. So we get 3 times by x, and then just going to make that a plus sign, right? Every time. And then on the right side, we have 3 times 2. So let's write that out. 3 times 2. After you get used to doing this enough times, you won't have to do this middle step, most likely, but if you have to, it's not that bad. So 3x, and then plus, well, 3 times 2 is just simply 6. Next example we're going to do, and we're only going to do the 4, and we'll get some practice with these ones after that, is expand 3 bracket x minus 1 close bracket. So the only difference here is we have that minus sign, right? And this is where you're going to see why I like just thinking them as positive and negative numbers and not addition and subtraction anymore. So 3 times x, same thing we've been doing for our first bit, 3 times x. Same plus sign I keep saying, just put it in. And then our second part, we have our 3 times negative 1. So we write 3 times by negative 1. So right now, if you know your sign rules, great. I'm going to put them up just for your own benefit up on the right side, just so you have them always. So your sign rules say that if we have a positive number and we multiply it by another positive number, our end result will be a positive number. They also say if we have a negative number and we multiply by another negative number, that is also going to be a positive. We also have a positive times a negative, which we actually have in our case here. We're going to get a negative, and a negative times by a positive is going to get us a negative number. So let's go back to our question now. So we have positive 3 and positive x, so we get positive 3x. And then on our right side, this is where our sign's going to change. And so we can do, you can always just work with the numbers. We can do 3 times 1, and we know that that is 3. And then we can look at our signs. A positive times a negative, so we get a negative. So last example we're going to do, we're going to expand 3, left bracket, x minus 2, right bracket. So 3 times by x, should be used to doing 3 times by x by now. So 3 times by x, and then our plus sign. And we have here 3 times by negative 2. So 3 times by negative 2. That means we're going to get 3 times by x is simply 3x. And 3 times 2 is 6. And then a positive times a negative is a negative. Okay, so here are a list of questions for you to try. If you want right now, pause the video, and then we'll go through them quickly afterwards before ending this little lesson. Right, so the first one, we have 2 times x, so we're going to get 2x, and then we have 2 times 4, so we have plus 2 times by 4. Sorry, I forgot to add that in. 2 times x plus 2 times 4, so that is going to give us 2x plus 8 at the end. Next one, we have 3 times by x minus 3. So we have 3 lots of x minus 3. So we're doing that times that. So 3 times by x. And then we have 3 times by minus 3. And so we're going to get 3x and minus 9, because 3 times 3 is 9. Positive times a negative is a negative. Next one we're going to do is 4 times 2x. So we have that 4. 4 times by 2x. And so we can just write down 4 times 2x plus, or 4 times 3. And we get 8x plus 12. Next one, I like to always put up a couple of these because I find that it can confuse people. Just because the x is in the wrong order, it's not first, doesn't mean it's changed any bit. We're still just going to multiply that outside by each term. So we have 3 times 2. So we write 3 times 2. Then we're going to add, and then we're doing 3 times negative x. 3 times by negative x, which is going to give you 6. And then we have 3 times negative x, so that is 3x, and a positive times negative, which makes it negative. And lastly, number 5, that we have finally a situation where it changes both your signs on the inside. So, but nothing's different as long as you follow what I was doing. So we have here negative 2 times by x, and then I'm going to put my plus sign like I always say I do, and then we'll do our other part. So we have negative 2 times by negative 2. So be careful of all these negative signs and not to confuse yourself. So here we have negative 2 times x. So we're going to get 2 times x is 2x. And then a positive times a negative is a negative. And then here, 2 times 2, well, we know that's, sorry, we know that's 4, correct? And then a negative times a negative, well, that's a positive. So we'll get more practice with these as we go.